Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Sealed Master Naruto X May X Karin, Part 4. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this and comment for next part. And now let's start the fanfic. Shikaku looked thoughtful for a moment before nodding his head. He could understand Tsunade's reasons. And he had nothing against them. I've heard that they don't allow people in. Is it going well? Team 7 took a mission to the Land of Snow a couple of years ago. Naruto seemed to have made an impression with the daimyo there. This daimyo, Princess Koyuki Kazuhama, she has requested Naruto's services in guarding her towards Uzushiogakure. I have assigned Jiraiya as well to the request. Now this was something that opened a curious door. He didn't know if it was a good idea to let Naruto see Uzushiogakure, but they needed to see where his loyalties lie. This was a good opportunity for them to test Naruto's loyalties, and also for Jiraiya to get valuable information about the village. Isn't this a little suspicious? Everything is suspicious, Tsunade said firmly. But I cannot question the connection between Naruto and the princess. I have read Kakashi's report on their mission. I assume that she is probably going there for the Land of Snow's technology. From what Kakashi said, the Snow is a technologically advanced nation that even uses tools like chakra armors and trains for transportation. Perhaps Uzushio wants to acquire this technology. But shouldn't Uzushiogakure have provided for her security? I did think of that, but what if she said she wanted Naruto and they agreed to it as they get to see one of their own without going through the effort of approaching him away from their home? Tsunade asked. They have been very secretive, even though they seem to rely heavily on the wave country. You will never see any Uzumaki in the wave. The leader of the wave always goes to Uzushiogakure. Shikaku was silent for a couple of moments. He was still suspicious about the whole thing, but for now, the benefit outweighed his suspicions. Perhaps it was the convenience about the whole issue. Either way, they would be able to confirm some things and be able to make decisions on their part. At best, I think our best option is to do things that don't threaten Konoha's security, Shikaku stated in a stern tone. It isn't just Iwagakure that was involved. I know there is a lot of mystery about it, but we know it is more than just one village that was involved. If it is so, and they decide to attack, do you think Konoha will be able to deal with it? Tsunade bit her lip. This was a situation she hoped she could avoid, but that would be the reality if they could not stop the great nations from touching Uzushio. It was truly going to be a difficult task. Winning against Iwagakure wasn't even guaranteed, but if another village entered the fray, Konoha would face destruction. It would be especially worse if Kumo got involved. The village has two Jinchurikis who can fully transform. Tsunade had a job and it was to protect the village. She would certainly not do anything that would result in the leaf facing destruction, even if it meant turning a blind on Uzu's destruction. Would she regret it? Perhaps not. But would she be filled with guilt for allowing Konoha to be destroyed? Very much so that she would wish she had a second chance to change things. But there was none of that in this world. Once you died, it was all over. We wouldn't be able to deal with the danger, Tsunade said. Shikaku felt there was something else coming, but what do you think, Shikaku? Well, if they attack and we do nothing, it is likely they might feel a bit too confident and decide to attack us as well. It is unlikely but a possibility. When it happened last time, we were not told of it, we just heard about it after it had happened, and yet the village did nothing. That is something that worries me about how the Uzumaki will react to our attempts to form connections with them. Trying is an effort we have to take regardless, Shikaku said. People might not know, they might not even know the Uzumaki as a clan, but those of us who know understand the importance of the clan to Konoha. The village has influenced many things about us. We still wear their symbol, and many people in the village wear the symbol without even realizing where the symbol comes from. Our Fuinjutsu is a legacy of the Uzumaki. They provided for us. When the Kyuubi had to be transferred to another host, the Uzumaki sent one of their own. And even now it is one of them who holds the Kyubi. That is a service to Konoha that we cannot simply ignore. Even the past leadership seemed to sweep it under the rug because of the clan's destruction. Her sensei, Konoha, yes, this village was truly ignorant of how just valuable having the Uzumaki as an ally was to Konoha. But what has Konoha done for the Uzumaki? In any case, we have to improve training, place strict rules on shinobi. You will draw out a new curriculum for the academy that will overhaul the current one. Jonin senseis will have to take their jobs seriously in ensuring that their students are ready for anything. Is that acceptable? Shikaku nodded. I will work on it, he said. Should I call the Jonins who have teams to you? Tsunade nodded. Yes, I will deliver the message, but we must be careful that word of it doesn't become public knowledge. The Jonins must be sworn with keeping the secret to themselves. We don't want anything that will create tension in the village and burden the young ones. The Godime said, perhaps if we change things in the academy, we will be able to weed out those who are no fit to become shinobi. There are too many of them these days, Shikaku was willing to admit. Shikamaru was surely going to be displeased with having to work harder than he would like. He could imagine his son's reaction to the news, but Konoha had to prepare. They had to prepare themselves for anything. Things looked like they could get dangerous. This is why we must take action. Tsunade said, if we are going to end up going to war, I want to have shinobi who are ready, shinobi who know what they are getting themselves into. I don't want to send people to war simply for the numbers. Land of Frost. Naruto was waiting by the harbor, waiting for Koyuki's ship to finally arrive. He had arrived at the port 2 days ago, and each day he came here. He was always checking in to see if she would arrive earlier than expected. But she had not. Yet, he'd waited. The sound of the ocean was soothing, it had felt natural. Perhaps that was why he had enjoyed coming here and didn't mind sitting by the dock every day. People stared and asked questions, but he hadn't been a creep who ran away from people when they asked questions. There had been a fisher who saw him since he came here, and the man greeted him each day, asking if his guest was coming. The man saw him in the morning and in the evening. He always asked the same question, and Naruto's response had always been the same. It was still early morning on this day, but Naruto was already up, feeling the cold breeze that washed over the atmosphere. It was around that time that a large ship docked with Princess Koyuki. He had smiled as he saw the woman getting out of the ship with a couple of people around her. Well, she was the daimyo, she needed her entourage. She was still an actress, she needed her guards. Naruto hoped that he didn't have to guard everyone with her. It was going to be a bothersome job that he wouldn't want to do, and Jiraiya hadn't said anything about these many people. He'd said only Princess Koyuki. Perhaps they were going to stay within this land and wait for her return. Princess, Naruto greeted with a smile. Koyuki smiled and held out her right hand. Naruto, she said as the blonde gently took her hand and kissed it, her smile brightened. You have grown, she said. What lives must grow, Naruto said calmly. You haven't aged at all, I see you're still the same charming woman as you were then. Oh, you flatter me, Koyuki said. Perhaps, Naruto responded. Are they coming in for the journey? He asked, looking at the people walking behind her. Koyuki shook her head and then turned to her people for a moment before glancing back at Naruto. No, they are staying here. Once I got out of the ship, it was no longer their duty to protect me. They will not travel with us but will stay here and wait for me. Naruto glanced at the people behind the princess for a moment. They didn't look particularly pleased with those words, but what could they do? When the master says this has to be done, you do it. If you don't do it, you get fired, and someone who can do what is requested is hired without asking too many questions is hired. Naruto didn't doubt his abilities to protect the princess against any danger. If things got too dangerous, he could always summon the toads. He hasn't been doing it recently. In fact, he has gone out of his way to avoid summoning them. Perhaps this was why the Toad Chief had stared at him with a curious glance the day he had faced Sasuke. Either way, he would have to do it if things got a little difficult. He doubted it nevertheless, but there was no harm in thinking of all possibilities. Jiraiya was fine with it because the Sannin understood his strength better than anyone else. Perhaps not as much as he thought he did, but he knew better than anyone. Jiraiya didn't know everything that he could do. Some things had to be kept away from people. As a shinobi, you didn't always reveal your cards, now did you? You will be protected with my life. Koyuki smiled. I expect nothing less, she said. I didn't think you'd be coming alone. Well, I am not complaining. This does give me a chance to talk to you without anyone interfering. Naruto raised an eyebrow in curiosity but didn't raise his questions about the tone of her voice. Jiraiya will join us in the Wave Country. He had to go for a little detour, but you should not worry about your safety, I will take care for you. The princess nodded. She bid farewell to her people and Naruto took her things before they walked away from the port. There was a carriage waiting for them along the way. Koyuki stared at it for a moment before looking at Naruto. We are not going by land, are we? She asked. Land would be too much for her, and certainly not in that small thing. There wasn't enough room. Where was she going to bath? Naruto certainly didn't expect her to spend time sitting on that thing and then be forced to help herself behind a bush, did he? We are, Naruto said with a smile. I think you will enjoy it. My clones will carry the carriage and I will ride with you. We will camp out in the forest, eat fish, and you'll bath when we find a stream of water. It will be fun, it will be like the shinobi experience. Koyuki frowned. If there had been a route, I would have gone around the lightning country and gone straight to Uzu or the wave. Naturally, I kid about all that, Naruto said. But that is what official records will show. I have arranged for something small along the harbor on the other side of the country. However, you must know that the journey might be troublesome. In what way? The sea on that other side is filled with pirates. Naruto said. We might encounter them along the way and I will have to fight them. There might be some discomfort, but for now, we have to use that to travel towards the other side of the country. Koyuki was silent for a couple of moments before nodding her head. For a moment, I thought you were serious about traveling inland. My sensei seemed to expect me to take the route because it is the safest, Naruto said. But we can change things. You'll be more comfortable. You just said there might be some discomfort, the princess with a stare. I misspoke, Naruto quickly said with a small smile. Come on, I don't want someone stealing our ride. He walked her to the small carriage. Naruto sealed away her things in a storage scroll and then created clones to carry the carriage. Once he was done, he also stepped into the carriage and it started moving. It's comfortable in here, Koyuki said as Naruto entered. The seats were soft and didn't hurt her butt. There was enough room to move her legs. Naruto could even seat across her, but she didn't want that. Please sit next to me. I want you a little closer. Naruto didn't question it, he merely moved to her side and settled in peacefully. It was a bit relaxing. He didn't mind that there was a woman sitting next him with a fragrance that seemed to hypnotize his senses. She really did smell pleasant. He could almost move closer and then request to sniff her a bit. But he did not. He closed his eyes for a moment as he enjoyed the feeling. You're comfortable. Any reason I shouldn't be? It would be a little fun for me if you acted a bit nervous, Koyuki said with a smile. Naruto smiled. Perhaps a couple of years ago, he said. But I have overgrown that. Admittedly, you do have a certain presence about you. I want to hear more about that, but for now, I really need to take a nap. Koyuki said with a yawn. Naruto blinked. She hadn't looked like she wanted to sleep. He smiled, realizing that it had slipped his mind that this woman was an actress. Putting on masks was her natural for her. She could do it even better than trained shinobi. He shook his head. He was going to have to be careful. Are you sure you want to sleep? I could do things to you. Naruto said with a straight face. The woman giggled in thought. Her body fell over to his and she closed her eyes, said her last words before falling asleep. I trust you won't, but if you want to do something, you just have to ask. Trust. What a strong word to use. Shinobi were not the most trustworthy people. They could not be trusted. They lied and cheated whenever it was convenient. The creature that was called a shinobi was one you did not want to trust blindingly. But he did have an experience with the princess. She had watched him. She had learned from him. And Naruto liked to believe that he was a trustworthy person. Or maybe he was not. Naruto did nothing to disturb the princess from her nap. He too closed his eyes. He could afford to take a nap. He rarely took them during the day, but this was convenient. The person next to him was sleeping and the clones were keeping guard. If anything happens, he could be awoken. He didn't even think he could sleep in the sea. This was a good opportunity to sleep. And so, he forced his mind to obliviousness. Later that day, their boat was speeding through the vast waters. The sight was a little frightening. They were surrounded by water, and if something happened, they would sink to their deaths. Naruto was a shinobi, but what could he do against the forces of nature? Koyuki hadn't tried to think deeply about it, as it would make her uncomfortable with the whole journey. It was just her and Naruto. There was no need have such thoughts. The blonde was sitting by himself, his clone navigating the boat. He was with a bottle of alcohol with him, and expressionless on his face. She hadn't seen that look before. It was strange. He could project himself as a happy person, but with a bottle beside him, he looked a bit miserable. It was as if he was reliving something from the past. Koyuki wasn't a stranger to hiding feelings. She wasn't a stranger to putting on masks. She had put on one after being saved from death when her father was killed. She had moved around, playing the character of a princess. She was truly a princess, but she had suppressed the reality and focused on the acting, the mask, and the lies. What a life it had been. Koyuki sat beside the blonde, who glanced at her for a moment before staring into the space ahead of him. You'd looked at peace a few moments ago, looking at the sea and enjoying the air that came with being here, she said. Peace. That was strange. Maybe something foreign in his heart, his crowded head. Has he ever been at peace in his whole life? It was something he desired, but he could not truly grasp because really, he was a little miserable in the inside. He plays the role of a delightful person quite well. He had played it since he entered the academy, when he was playing genin, even with Jiraiya. But was his life really that delightful? It had the potential to be something else, but not now. Not when he was still like this. I sometimes enjoy a good view of nature, and when the wind blows like this, it fills all my senses with feelings that make me want to enjoy it, Naruto said with a small smile. If you become attuned to nature, you get to feel its mood, something like that. Koyuki stared into the clear sky. It was going to get dark soon. They would travel all night and probably reach their destination somewhere in the afternoon, but she wasn't complaining. There was calmness in the sea. She was calm. The atmosphere wasn't bad, and best of all, she didn't have to think about her duties and the nagging old geezers she has in her country. I can never be in the same wavelength with nature. I am just blissfully oblivious to its mood. What I see is what I believe, the princess said. Well, you are a shinobi, you train in such things, she said. She took the bottle away from Naruto and put it on her lips. That's nice, she said. Strong. I think I was drinking you when guys came to get me. Naruto nodded. Yes, drinking alone in bar, he chuckled. Something amusing. Naruto just shook his head. I just remembered something, he said. The drinking alone, it had become his favorite time, hasn't it? Perhaps it was the solitude and the idea of loosening the screws in the head that made him a little free. He would have to watch it, though. He drank a little too much when he tells himself it was time for the party. It has been a long journey. Yeah, Koyuki said, thinking of her own miserable journey. When did you start drinking? I don't know, Naruto said. One day my sensei invited me over to a bar and I was drinking. I had a couple and when my mind felt loose, I felt that there was nothing holding me back. There was no anger, no hatred, no burdens, I felt free. But when drinking he tells himself that he was drowning in his misery. Maybe that was right. Maybe not and he was just drowning his misery away in the alcohol. That is dangerous you know, Koyuki said in a serious tone. You can't allow yourself to be drunk to experience freedom. You are still young, if you get into it, you will have difficulty trying to break free. Saying that, she took the bottle away from him and put it on her side. No more drinking for you. Are you my boss now? Yes, I did hire you after all, Koyuki said in a firm tone. What kind of a guard are you anyway? How do you drink when on duty? Naruto smiled. It is unprofessional, he said. Despite what I said, I don't really get drunk that often. Over the past year, you can count the times I have been drunk, and that is maybe 3 times. There are days I set myself up just for drinking. The last time I got drunk was simply doing it because the people I was with were drunk. Koyuki looked thoughtful. What makes you miserable, Naruto? The past. Wasn't I also hindered by the past? It was the past that made me unable to face forward. No, I just didn't want to face it, I ran away from it. That was why, but I am not running away from my past. I have stared into its hateful eyes, fought with it, sometimes it nearly knocked me out, but I have fought it and I have not lost. But because it has been filled with injustice, I can't let it go. I want to wear it over my shoulders and express the injustice to those responsible. What happens if you don't? If I let it go? I won't be miserable, I'll be free but nothing changes. Nothing changes, Koyuki. This is why I have resolved to carry it. But it is proving to be difficult. Naruto nodded his head, a sad smile on his lips, he responded in whisper. I have had time to think about things clearly. You know, thinking and thinking has been what signifies my whole life. I have thought of many things, being happy, being miserable, regrets if I chose to walk on the wrong path. Things are always changing in this world. Nothing ever remains same. You will change, but I think I have reached a point where I can't change anymore. I have accepted my roles, my job, my path, the princess said. Changing means abandoning it all or doing things in a different manner, but I don't want to abandon my people, and the way I have been doing things has made my people happy, so I am content with things as they are. She paused and stared at the blonde. If you change, what do you think your change will do? How will it affect those around you? Naruto didn't respond to the question, but he did smile, looking at the princess a bit fondly. Princess, you have truly become a different person. You were a miserable person when we first met, you look at you now. She smiled. It comes with the job, she said. Wave country. You have a strange look on you, Jiraiya said, watching the blonde stand motionlessly. Naruto glanced at the toad sage for a moment before looking up into the sky. He was truly always wondering if there was life within the heavens, but he didn't know. He would most likely never know about it because he could never reach there. It wasn't a place for humans. No matter how many times they try to go up, they would eventually be dragged back down to the ground. When did you arrive, sensei? Naruto asked calmly after a couple of moments of silence. Not long ago, Jiraiya said. Where is our friend? Resting. She didn't get much sleep along the way, Naruto responded before putting both his hands in his pockets and started walking away. This had been his training ground when they arrived to the Wave Country, a place he had met Haku. That delightful had such innocence and purity, it had made him reflect on himself. Perhaps it suited Haku given his bloodline. White was a symbol of purity. He contained the Kyubi, a biju known for its hatred and malice. I hope that wasn't your fault, Jiraiya said in a sly tone. Naruto glanced at the Sannin, who was now walking beside him. If you had any shame, I would ask the question, but I know the answer, he said with a shake of his head. It is the journey, he said. You are truly strong when you fight to protect someone precious to you. Someone said words along those lines while I was here. I am really a sentimental person, so I keep such things in my head. That is indeed the truth, Jiraiya said with a nod. He wasn't agreeing to Naruto's thoughts about being sentimental but the words he had been told. We have to go now, time isn't really on your side, we have things to do and you have another training to do. What training? Jiraiya merely grinned. I'll tell you after this mission, the sage said. Naruto shook his head. He didn't question the Sannin, he just continued walking with the man in silence. They walked through the streets of the wave. It had truly changed from the last time he came here with Team 7 on their first mission outside of Konoha. He was a little bit of a known person in this place. Then again, they had a bridge that was connected to the Fire Nation named after him. When they reached the hotel Koyuki was at, they found the princess sitting a single couch. I was wondering where you had run off to, Naruto, she said before glancing at the man beside the blonde. Jiraiya-sama, she greeted without a smile. Jiraiya smiled. Princess Koyuki, you look as beautiful as always. The princess didn't respond to Jiraiya's compliment. Are we going now? I took the liberty of preparing everything. You know, the people in Uzushio are waiting for me and I'd rather not let them wait for me. We are going to depart now, Naruto said as he walked over to take Koyuki's things. I assume you two have some history. Well, given Jiraiya's skills, it shouldn't be surprising. I wouldn't call it a history, Koyuki said. But we did meet once, she responded as she stood up. I thought your sensei was someone else, not him. You had Kakashi with you the last time around, what changed? He was relegated, Naruto said with a shrug as he looked around to ensure that he wasn't missing anything. I don't need to say anything but I really hope you behave sensei. We don't want you doing anything that might get us in trouble with the leaders of Uzushiogakure. Jiraiya glared at Naruto. I'm not a child you know and I should be the one telling you to behave. He said sternly. You really have no respect for your sensei. Naruto shrugged his shoulders carelessly. There isn't really much worth respecting, pervert sensei. You're calling me that in front of her. Jiraiya looked shocked. Naruto said carelessly. It is the truth and if you have met her before, it means she knows you are a pervert, right? Jiraiya mumbled something under his breath causing Koyuki to laugh. You two seem to get along just fine, she said with a smile. Well, he is my sensei. Why are you putting it like that? Who knows? Naruto said before turning his attention to the princess. They walked safely for a couple of minutes and got into a large ship that was waiting for them. Naruto helped Koyuki into the ship and helped her towards her resting place. She stayed there and Naruto walked towards the deck, where Jiraiya was waiting for him. I couldn't get a damn thing about Uzushiogakure from the people in the wave, not even the merchants know something, Jiraiya said with frustration. I couldn't get a chance to work with the leader of the wave but I doubt I would have been able to get anything. How do you control a nation, have so much influence over it and yet the people around you remain clueless on who you truly are? He had no doubt his mind that he was truly dealing with some crafty people in Uzu. It did make him excited knowing that he was finally going to meet them but he really hoped that he was able to learn something. If they managed things in the same level as they did with the wave, it was really going to be a difficult mission and one that would truly make him nervous. Iwa's actions could be determined by what he was able to find and before Tsunade sends anyone to the village, she needed something that she could work on. She wouldn't get it if he wasn't able to work around Uzushio's security measures. I cannot answer that question, Jiraiya, you are the one who deals with intelligence, you ought to know, Naruto said with his eyes staring directly into the water below. You're not helping, Jiraiya said with a frown. I didn't think you needed my help, sensei. You did go on your way to do things without me, you can still continue without me, but if you need my help, I can offer my services. Jiraiya shook his head. I can't expose you like that, the Sannin said in a calm tone. You need to focus on protecting Princess Koyuki and I will handle the other issues. I hope I don't get caught, he said with a shake of his head. But if I still get caught, it is part of the work. I doubt they'll do anything about it. I hope you don't get them thinking that she intentionally brought spies into their village, Naruto said to the Sannin. That is something I have to consider when moving, the Sannin said in thought. But I simply can't let this chance pass. Them banning me from their village will be worth stopping Iwagakure trying to invade Uzu once more. Naruto said nothing in response. Uzushiogakure. Jiraiya's eyes were as sharp as when he was in his younger days, he didn't want to miss anything. The first thing he noted was that there was no way to enter the village with the whirlpools twirling around. They were stopped before their ship passed. It made him realize that some of them were man-made. It was possibly the work of Fuinjutsu. When the ship docked, there was only one person who was there. But there had been 4 large ships docked by the small seaport. He assumed that although there were no people around, this was probably the only way to enter Uzushiogakure. The man who was waiting for them was just a civilian. He led them through a narrow road surrounded by trees. After walking for a while, they reached 2 large gates that were closed. The man told them he was stopping there and then turned away to leave. One of the gates slowly opened and the 3 moved closer before entering the village. It was a completely different atmosphere. There were people around, a bit tall buildings made up the village. The buildings didn't use wood like what they use in the Hidden Leaf. Across a stream of water that went through at the heart of the village, Jiraiya could see ruins, the result of destruction. Perhaps they had been left there as a form of a reminder to what was done to them. What was obvious was that the village seemed a bit bigger than he had anticipated and that worried him. The people seemed different, and Jiraiya concluded that these were people from different lands. Everything looked normal. He couldn't see a single shinobi. He couldn't see any red hair. But when they arrived deeper into the village, Jiraiya started to see them, the Uzumaki. Jiraiya searched for Naruto's reaction but there was none. It was then that another person took over escorting them. Haku smiled at the guests. Princess Koyuki, I am pleased to see you again, he said quietly. Jiraiya-sama, he then turned to the blonde. Hello Naruto, it is good to see you again. I was actually happy when told that you'd be coming here. You know each other? Jiraiya was quick to ask. Haku nodded. I was their enemy in his first mission out the leaf, he said. Please follow me, I will lead you to your hotel. Jiraiya took the chance to walk beside Haku so that he could ask questions. Although he could see red hair, there wasn't many of them. This was what destruction did, wasn't it? Perhaps if they hadn't been destroyed, they would have been running through the streets, looking all energetic as Kushina had been. I don't see a lot of Uzumaki around. These are just the handful of survivors from the invasion, Haku said. But even before, the village wasn't full of Uzumaki people. There were other people around. You are not from here, are you? Haku glanced at the Sannin with a smile. Jiraiya-sama, we know about you. To be honest, there was a debate about letting you into the village. We assumed that you'd behave given that you are here on a mission. And we would like you to behave. We cannot allow you to walk around the village without anyone accompanying you. If possible, we'd like you to stay by Princess Koyuki's side. Jiraiya frowned. You're not even going to let us take a tour around the village. Haku shook his head. No, he said. You are not here for a tour, are you? But we would, however, offer one to Naruto. Special treatment? The Sannin asked with narrowed eyes. You could call it that, but it is a fact that he is Uzumaki. They are treated as precious commodity in here. Jiraiya glanced at Naruto at the corner of his eyes. You say that but you haven't made a move on him. That should be simple to understand, Haku responded calmly. Naruto is a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf. Any movement towards him wouldn't be welcomed. It is something else since he is a Jinchuriki. The leaders doubt Konoha wouldn't be willing to part with the Kyuubi. Without a doubt, but the Kyuubi wouldn't be the only reason. Naruto was a valuable asset to the Hidden Leaf, and allowing him to leave would only weaken them. But it would also cause Uzushio trouble if other villages knew that the village was in possession of the Kyuubi. They would quickly turn their attention to destroying it without asking any questions. That was a reality that he didn't want to see. Haku didn't say anything more to the Sannin. He simply led them towards the hotel before departing. They were all booked in different rooms, with Koyukis surrounded by the two men. Jiraiya knocked, and Naruto walked into Naruto's room and found the blonde lying flat on his back. The window was there, but he wasn't by it. Tell me about that, Haku. There is nothing much to tell other than the last time I saw him he was dead and that he holds a bloodline. Ice release, Naruto said while staring at the crimson ceiling. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes with a bit of danger in it. Dead? You certainly didn't look like you saw a ghost when you saw him. It was like you knew he had been alive. Naruto glanced at the Toad Sage for a moment with an expressionless mask on his face. You don't have to shout, you know, he said. That aside, regardless of what, when have you seen me giving any funny reactions? I had more things to think about other than seeing someone who was supposed to be dead. We are not exactly living in a world that doesn't make the impossible possible. Jiraiya was silent for a moment. I forgot that you were walking in the very land that your mother was born, the Sannin said. When are you going to take the tour? I haven't thought of it, Naruto said with a slight shrug. Take it tomorrow. You might be able to move freely given that you are Uzumaki, and they are offering the tour, the Sannin said in a firm tone. I will head out later on, you can watch the princess. I plan to do so, Naruto said. It is going to get dark soon. For now, I will take a nap, and when I wake up, I will go to the princess to entertain her. As her guard, I can't leave her to be alone before she decides to rest for the night. Later that night, it looked like it didn't have any shinobi, but when it was night, you could not mistake it, there were shinobi around the village. Jiraiya could feel shinobi moving around the buildings, but there was one place that seemed to hold secrets, the Emperor's compound. It didn't seem to hold any guard. There was no one around. It was curious, but although he was cautious, he could not afford not go. He had been extra cautious about approaching the villagers. He didn't want them to know anything. The moment he starts asking questions, he was likely to land himself into trouble with the people watching over the streets as if they were hawks. The Toad Sage climbed the wall that took him into the compound. His instincts kicked in as he felt that he was in a dangerous place. He only took a single step before someone flashed in front of him. He frowned. He had been caught. There was only one person. If he managed to disable her, he could still try something. He took a stance but was forced to take a step back when a wall of crystal formed around him. Gurren smiled seeing the Sannin in a fighting stance. He was a powerful shinobi. She would rather not fight him. That aside, fighting him was pointless since she wasn't going to end up torturing him or cutting off his head. Jiraiya-san, I believe you were warned about walking without someone to guide you. She did not move from her position. I couldn't find the guide, the Sannin said. He still had his guard up. I don't plan on fighting you, Gurren said. Do you know where you are? The Emperor's compound, the Sannin responded. Gurren nodded her head. You are not allowed to enter the grounds of the compound unless invited by the Emperor or given the permission to come in and go as you please. It is a rule in this village and the people respect it. You are not one of us, we usually don't forgive rats. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes with danger. Usually. Well, you are a special case and we don't want to end up having any problems with Konoha. However, since you obviously cannot be trusted to follow our village rules, we will escort you out early in the morning. For now, please don't make any trouble. Allow me to take you back to your room, where you will not leave for the rest of the night. If I refuse, I have heard that a couple of times, but do you want to find out? Jiraiya had an itchy feeling. He was certain he could handle the woman, but there was something off within the compound grounds. He touched down the ground and channeled chakra. It was quickly absorbed. So this is how you found out I was here, he said, looking towards Karin. There is a massive barrier within the compound that tracks chakra and absorb it as well. I guess for me, whose chakra is foreign, I can't use ninjutsu in this place. Karin didn't comment on the Sanin's words. Are you going to allow me to escort you? How is this going to affect things? It depends on your reasons, really. We don't think you are a bad person, but we still don't like people who don't follow our rules. Karin said. What is your reason, Jiraiya-san? Jiraiya considered his options for a moment before speaking. Iwagakure wants to determine whether you are an enemy or not. They said if they discover that Uzushiogakure is an enemy, they are going to destroy this village. When I told him that Konoha wouldn't stand for it, he said it was fine. I am concerned about what he will do. I thought I find something, I would be able to give something to the Tsuchikage that would calm things a bit. Why didn't you just ask? Jiraiya smiled. Well, he really couldn't say. You still need to leave tomorrow, Jiraiya. But if Konoha asks nicely, we may respond, Karin said as she started to walk towards the Sanin. Shall we? She snapped her fingers and the crystal disappeared. Jiraiya frowned. You're also a bloodline holder, aren't you? You are a spy all right, Karin said. But please, Jiraiya, don't try to leave your room this time around. We will know and we won't be pleased about it. We will be forced to make you leave even at this time, and the sea can be rather moody at night. Meanwhile, at times, Naruto really applauded his ability to be able to talk to anyone about anything. He hadn't been used to regular contact with people. Quite honestly, the Shinobi Academy had been one of his biggest tasks. But Naruto had done it. He had pulled it off and still continued to pull it off. He was also able to understand certain things about people. Perhaps the nights in the bars were truly helping him in understanding people better. There was no human. If you were going to work out with people, you needed to be able to understand them, to know them, and to be able to read them. The real journey was up ahead. He was still learning many things about the shinobi world, about the great nations. Hiruzen had taught him most things about the elemental nations, but he was learning it through experience. Sticking with Jiraiya had truly been a good idea on his part. Then again, the Sannin wasn't a bad person. Naruto was sure he was busy trying to infiltrate Uzushiogakures defenses to gain information. Naruto snorted at the thought. There wasn't going to be any luck in anything. Still, Jiraiya liked to gather information. His instincts could not be refused when he sensed something fishy. It's not really a good thing to be occupied with your thoughts when you are sitting with a beautiful woman, Princess Koyuki said to Naruto with a smile on her lips. Naruto glanced over at the black-haired woman before shaking his head. It depends on what you are thinking. I might be thinking deeply about you, he offered. If you are a nervous child who is afraid to voice his thoughts, I can understand that, but you are not a nervous child, are you? Naruto smiled. Who knows? He threw his hands in the air. Koyuki was silent for a couple of moments before speaking on a different matter. There is no place like home, is there? I was forced to flee when my father was killed by my uncle. I never looked back. I enjoyed being an actress, yet I was miserable. I had left my home and my uncle was doing as he pleased. But now, I am back home, I feel at ease, at peace. I am happy. As you say, there is no better place like home, Naruto said. You're always fond of home because you know no matter, I can always go back there. Besides, what is better than being of service to your people? The daimyo smiled. Nothing is better, she said. Though, you do need to live. When acting, I simply have to focus on being an actress, but after being feudal lord demands more attention from my side. My advisors are always nagging me about this and that, it is frustrating at times. Naruto chuckled lightly. I thought you'd be used to it by now, he said. Can't get used to it, she said with a shake of her head. It even makes me fearful knowing that I will be daimyo for the rest of my life. Feudal lords are not chosen like cages of hidden villages. They were the people who ruled over countries not by skill and qualification but by birth. You'll probably be replaced by your heir. Koyuki frowned. I'm not married yet, she said. The people there are trying to force me into marriage with princes from other nations just so I can have an heir. They'd be more than happy if I quit my job after producing a successor. Well, you are the only one in your family, so you have to do something, Naruto said. Say, Naruto, she started in a firm tone. You have a good standing. When you have reached that age, can you promise to marry me? Naruto stared at the woman for a long minute trying to figure out if she was serious or not. When she didn't say she was joking, he sighed. You want me to get killed by your fanboys? She smiled. I doubt they'd succeed, she said with amusement. Most of them who want to marry me are after money and fame. Those who just like me are just not worth it. What of me? You'll be at your home and I will be at my home, Koyuki said. It will be convenient, but we would have to talk about the other issues. You mean issues of the bed? Naruto asked with a straight face. The woman smiled slyly. You are not so innocent. You are not innocent either, are you, dear? Naruto said, but before Koyuki could respond, there was a knock on the door. Naruto called for the person to enter because the door wasn't locked. Karin walked into the room and looked between Koyuki and Naruto. They were sitting across from each other. There was peace in the room. Sorry to disturb you at this time, but I just wanted to inform you that we have caught one of your guards in the grounds of the Emperor's compound. Because he has disobeyed the rules and cannot be trusted not to do it again, we will escort him away tomorrow morning. He will return to the wave. I called it, Naruto said with a smile. You owe me 1,000 ryo, princess. I'm not paying that, you had inside knowledge, Koyuki said. Excuse me. Don't worry about it, I can understand, Koyuki said to Karin, who looked surprised. I will be fine. Uzu is the safest place anyway. My meeting is still scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m., yes. I'm not certain about that, Karin said with a shake of her head. I will have to inquire and report back to you. Koyuki shook her head. No need, she said. Thank you for the warning, I will have a word with Jiraiya-sama, she said. Karin knew she was being dismissed. She didn't linger around for much longer. She cast her eyes towards Naruto. She tried to say something, but he caught her look and smiled. A look flashed across her eyes. She returned the smile before turning away without another word leaving her lips. Who am I going to hold discussions with anyway? I assume you're not going to join. Yoshino, Naruto said. I'll be with Haku. The princess nodded. Where were we? Oh yes, we were getting to the good part before the interruption, Koyuki said with a smile. Naruto shared the smile. Uzushio will arrest you for trying your moves on a young one, princess, he said. Koyuki laughed upon hearing those words. I wouldn't mind, as long as I stay your prisoner. But you must still look after my land. She stood up after saying those words and then walked over to Naruto. She lifted her dress, exposing her thighs before she sat on him, both hands on his shoulders. You brought me all the way here, I'm allowed to do whatever I want with you. Besides, it's a little taste of what it will be like when we marry. I don't remember agreeing to marry you, Naruto said. He was saying that, his hands were already on her hips. At least you're not wearing your daimyo clothes. It would have been a hustle, he said. Koyuki smiled. Maybe, she said before leaning closer. Naruto suddenly pulled her closer. No teasing, he said before capturing her lips. Koyuki's lips were soft. She was taking the lead even though he was the one who initiated the kiss. He allowed her to do what she pleased, he permitted her tongue to slip through inside his mouth. After a couple of moments, they separated. Someone has been practicing, she said with a smile. And someone feels you ally frustrated, he said as he stood up. He carried the princess bridal style. Let us take the bedroom where the walls are thick and Jiraiya won't eavesdrop. Being carried like this, Koyuki smiled. There had been many moments she was carried like this in her movies. It has always felt so hollow, but this was exciting. This is rather fitting, you know. I am a princess, and you a. Naruto stopped her from talking by capturing her lips once more. Let us leave that, he said. When they arrived at the bed, he gently placed her down and quickly got atop of her before she decided to beat him to the punch once more. Slowly, he tore off her upper clothing, exposing her chest. You are going to pay for the replacement of those, she said with a smile. I will forfeit my pay on this mission. I thought you were paying for this mission as well. Naruto shrugged. I'm just a genin from Konoha. Where do you think I will get that kind of money? Koyuki laughed in response. The following day, Naruto had laughed seeing Jiraiya's miserable face as he was being escorted away from the village. He never listened and had been caught red-handed. It served him right. The Sannin did have many moments in which he was caught doing things he shouldn't be doing. It was mostly when he was peeping, but he had never felt sorry for the sage, and he hadn't felt anything even now as he was being taken away. He had even waved his right hand, saying goodbye to his sensei. The only thing that brought his mood down was the fact that Sannin was likely to question him more than he would have if he had done things right. It was going to be like an interrogation. But he has always handled questioning fairly well, hasn't he? Perhaps he had learned while being watched by the sharp gaze of the Sandaime Hokage. Those eyes might have been old, but they saw clearly. I'm surprised that he chose to disregard my warning, Haku said to Naruto. He had honestly been surprised to learn that the Sannin had been caught in the Emperor's compound. Couldn't the man have just relaxed in his hotel room without getting too curious? It was like this with everyone, wasn't it? Itachi did the same thing, but at least the Uchiha was never brought into the village. He was much of a danger than Jiraiya was. Well, the leaders would be happy that they finally got rid of the Sannin. They hadn't been exactly happy with his appearance in the village. It wasn't that he was seen as an enemy, but it was his curiosity that had been a bother. Jiraiya doesn't follow anyone's rules, he likes doing things on his own, Naruto responded calmly. Well, I am not sad he got caught. It should have taught him a valuable lesson. That is rather cold, Haku said. He is your sensei. Naruto shrugged carelessly. Jiraiya wasn't a child. He was a grown man. He didn't have to worry about the man's feelings. That aside, the man did like teaching by experience. This had been his own trial by fire. He broke the rules. He must face the consequences of such actions, Naruto said with indifference. Koyuki had already gone for her meeting. Naruto didn't know how long it would take. But he wasn't worried much about it. She was going to have another meeting in the evening and they would be able to leave Uzushio tomorrow morning. Jiraiya would be waiting impatiently for them. Perhaps by then he would have made another attempt pass through the village's defenses. For now, Naruto had time. He would have time for most of the day. With the princess away, he could wander around. He has missed the feeling. Sometimes, Haku didn't finish his thoughts, he shook his head. Do you want to settle down or should we go to side of the river? It was just ruins. A place left to remember the injustice of the past. It was a reminder of how cruel this world of shinobi could be at times. When he was 7, the image had brought in some raw emotions from him. He had experienced something strange, and this emotion is what brought him to this point in his life. Naruto did wonder though, how different would things be for him if the Sandaime hadn't brought him here? Things would be different. He certainly wouldn't have been standing here. He would have been back in the hidden leaf, maybe miserable or happy. Anything could have been possible. Little things could make big changes. But Naruto was thankful to the old man for bringing him here, for everything he told him about the Uzumaki. By the time he came here, he had truly felt like he had known them, he was one of them. Naruto nodded his head, but before he could say anything, his bird friend chirped as it landed on his left shoulder. He had missed this messenger. He hadn't been able to get the chance to do anything because Jiraiya was always around. He turned to Haku and spoke. Well, I wanted to spend some time, but as you can see, my friend here has brought me work. Sakura couldn't keep her excitement from her face when she walked into the office of the Godime Hokage. She had been summoned here and she had a feeling it to do with Sasuke, her beloved Sasuke-kun. She really hoped it was something good, hence her excitement. Tsunade wasn't smiling, but that didn't make Sakura's smile falter. She kept it even when Tsunade stared at her. You called for me, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade nodded her head. She truly had more troublesome brats to deal with. Back in her days, brats were fighting in the war. There was no time to be a fangirl or anything. Fighting for survival, protecting your comrades, it was all that mattered. Today, they have time to think about worthless things. They even take their makeup when going on a mission. It was utterly ridiculous, but this just showed how much the world has changed. Tsunade was going to straighten them. Those who were not worthy of becoming shinobi would not graduate from the academy. She would make sure that the graduation exam was a little challenging. She could not have kids who just want to play shinobi to become ninja when they could be facing war in the near future. Even if they did not face war, it was important to keep Konoha's defenses at best working condition in case something happens. Godime cleared her throat and spoke. Naruto encountered Sasuke, and they fought, but Sasuke managed to flee with Orochimaru. Tsunade said those words in a simple tone. There was no other way to put it. She wasn't going to add anything unnecessary, and she would not say when this had happened. I called you here just so you can know that Sasuke is alive and well. Sakura frowned. Not the good news she wanted to know. She had always known that he was alive. She could feel it in her heart that her beloved was alive. But Naruto had seen him. He had fought him. That didn't surprise her. Before Sasuke decided to ditch Konoha, he'd been prone to fighting Naruto over little things. Someone always got in the way before things got serious. Oh, Sakura mouthed with disappointment. I know this isn't something you wanted to hear, Sakura, but I just thought you should know, Tsunade said. Sakura nodded. She hadn't even heard anything from Naruto. He didn't respond to the letter she sent him. It didn't make her smile. But she didn't want to think too deeply about it. Naruto was going to come back, and she would face him. He was still her teammate after all. You said Naruto, wasn't Jiraiya-sama there with him? Tsunade shook her head. Jiraiya wasn't there. He only joined in during the fight, and that was when they were forced to flee. Who was winning? Tsunade tilted her head to the side. She was curious why Sakura would want to know. It wasn't a competition, was it? Jiraiya didn't say. She lied. Why do you ask, Sakura? Well, Sasuke-kun has always felt that he was superior. That was something she had ignored or just failed to see in their younger days. Of course, she did think about it now, but it didn't change anything about her feelings towards him. Sasuke would always glare at Naruto if he did something better than he did. She didn't want to admit this, but she did. Sasuke was always even jealous of Naruto. There had always been a feeling that Naruto never really tried too hard. I think his jealousy was part of the reason he felt he needed to leave Konoha. Tsunade frowned. So, if Naruto was winning, there is a chance that he might decide to abandon Orochimaru and go somewhere, Sakura said. If he lost, he'd feel frustrated and would think Orochimaru wasn't giving him what he wants. That is an interesting conclusion, girl, Danzo said as he stepped into the office. Sakura twirled around to face the man who spoke in a cold tone. She always had a chilling feeling whenever she saw this person. Now, she wasn't a good judge of character, but there was no way Danzo was a good person. If this man was a good person, then Jiraiya wasn't a shameless pervert. Granted, he has already shown himself as a jealous person and betrayed Konoha. If those feelings resurface, where do you think he will go? Sakura hesitated for a moment before responding. I think he will come back here. Naive, Danzo said in a cold tone and then dismissed Sakura just like that. He turned his attention to Danzo. What do you think, Hokage? Tsunade ignored the war hawk and turned towards Sakura. She smiled the pinkett and then spoke. You may leave, Sakura. If there is anything else, I will tell you. Hi. Sakura hurriedly left the office. Tsunade's cold look turned towards Danzo. Since they were working together, he was appearing before her a bit more often. At least now he knew who was in charge of Konoha, and if he was going to try to undermine her rule, he wouldn't do it blatantly, he would do it in a way that he thinks she won't find out. There was still a minor problem with how things are in this situation. She wasn't going to tell him that there might be war, it might just entice him to do something ridiculous that would frustrate her planning. She didn't want anyone who would worsen things as they are. There was just no telling what the old man would do if things turned out dangerous. She didn't want him attacking any hidden village. Tsunade crushed the thought that she could not tell what Danzo would do. She knew quite well what he would do in a dangerous situation. If Kumo and Iwa proved that they could work together, Danzo would do everything in his best of capabilities to make sure that those villages end up fighting. With how skillfully crafty he was, she was certain that he would succeed in something like that. He was good player of the dark arts after all, and he has been playing the game in the past wars. What Sasuke will do isn't the least of my concern, Tsunade said in a stern tone. Well, if he does leave Orochimaru, we have more opportunities to take him back. Orochimaru is weakened in this time, so it wouldn't be difficult for Sasuke to leave, especially with the Sharingan. Orochimaru was quite arrogant and he would think he could do whatever he wants. Tsunade pitied her former teammate at times. If it does come to a point where he is brought back to the village, you should give him to me. I'm certain I can bend him to serve Konoha to the best of his abilities. Danzo said confidently. Somehow I don't doubt that, Tsunade said. But you'd also make him serve you, isn't it, Danzo? The war hawk didn't respond to Tsunade's question. So, you'll give him to me. What he demands is power, and power I can give to him. He is also someone who lacks emotional control, I can help with that. Tsunade looked thoughtful for a moment before responding. We will consider if we manage to capture him in time, she said. Then, what can I do for you? I heard that Jiraiya and Naruto were in Uzushio, Danzo said with narrowed eyes. It was certainly reckless to have Naruto go to Uzushio. What if he likes what he sees and then decides to bide his time before abandoning Konoha? Some people could not put clan past village. Shinobi like Itachi were truly rare. It was indeed a pity that Sasuke hadn't turned out like his brother. Perhaps if things had been different, he would have made a play. But he had been warned and so he stayed out of it. He was starting to see that it was now a mistake to have left the last Uchiha alone. That is true, they were there for a mission, Tsunade said. But they didn't get much information out of the land. Jiraiya was kicked out of the village after getting caught trying to find information. For some reason, Tsunade had laughed when she heard that the Sannin had been caught. It wasn't a situation she should be laughing at, but it was Jiraiya. Anything else? What mission? Escorting the Snow Daimyo, that is as far as we know, Tsunade said. And your search? No progress, Danzo said with a barely noticeable frown. They have even guarded against aerial approach. There is a barrier that surrounds the village, so you can't see anything from up. There is only one entrance. There is no village that is completely impenetrable, Danzo. Danzo nodded. He was able to finally agree on something with the Godime Hokage. It didn't please him nevertheless. They were humans, there was no defense that could be perfect. As long as they were dealing with people, they would make a way into the village. Entering isn't that much of a problem. If you have proper documentation, you might enter. But moving around the village is the problem. During day, the sun's light reaches everywhere. You can only hide under a shadow, but even then, you can't make any moves. It is quite possible that they use a similar principle when it comes to monitoring movements in the village. Tsunade didn't act surprised by hearing that information. Jiraiya had told her something similar. This really just meant that Uzushio had some adept sensors and fuinjutsu users. When it comes to the latter, it shouldn't be a surprise, it has always been their trade. We are thinking of sending a civilian since they seem to track down chakra movements. Tsunade waved her right hand at this. There is no need for that, for now at least, she said firmly. I am going to open a dialogue with them and try to see if we can negotiate something with them. I don't want a spy being caught there while we are talking. They will accuse us of negotiating in bad faith. Negotiate? Danzo asked. He looked surprised. Negotiate what with them? Excuse me. Do not be naive, Tsunade. Danzo slammed his cane on the floor. Uzushio's resurrection will cause a problem for us because both Kumo and Iwagakure will act. We cannot let them act before we do something. I value the work of Fuinjutsu and know what the Uzumaki have offered to this village, but we don't have to negotiate with them. Trying to get intel into the village is nothing more than an exercise to determine the village's strength before moving in. We need to think deeply about this. Tsunade wasn't really shocked that Danzo would think of invading Uzushiogakure, their once ally. He would think that. She shook her head. He was thinking about it and actually thought that they were planning to do it. Was he thinking that it was best for them to take control of Uzu or just destroy it before their enemies get hold of it? This man was truly ridiculous. We are not going to invade Uzushio, Danzo. And I don't talk to me like that ever again. I understand the situation more than what you might think. She glared at the war hawk for a moment before speaking again. Don't think of doing something behind my back. If you are going to strap one of your agents with an Iwa uniform and send them to Uzu, just know that a seal can be removed, Danzo. If you put a seal on them to stop them from speaking, you know that you are dealing with people who understand Fuinjutsu more than you do. They can undo your seal and get what they want. If that happens, and someone is tracked down to you, I will feed you to them as a peace offering, do you understand me? You are making a mistake, Hokage. Danzo said in a firm tone. You are making the same decisions Hiruzen would have made. If this village gets in trouble I will not repeat myself to you, Danzo. Tsunade cut off the war hawk before he could finish talking. If I want your opinion, I will ask for it. Now, leave before you say anything else that will piss me off. Danzo eyed her coldly before twirling around. He left the office without saying another word to her. On his way out, he slammed the door, like a child. Tsunade sighed tiredly. She was starting to regret her decision to bring the war hawk in, but then again, if she hadn't done it, she wouldn't be able to anticipate his movements by hearing his thoughts about certain things. She knew how to handle things because she was certain of how he was going to do things. If anything happens, he was going to be the scapegoat. She didn't even feel bad for it. She called an Anbu to get her Kakashi and Neji. The silver-haired Jonin arrived in her office after about 10 minutes. This time around, he didn't have his perverted book at hand. Neji arrived a second later, looking as stoic as ever. He did the formalities of greeting everyone before waiting to hear why he had been called. Despite everything, Neji was the best out of Naruto's generation. He was even the first one to become Jonin. He was a good kid. She couldn't count the blonde in that comparison because she thought it wasn't fair. Then again, both had been unfortunate when growing up. Neji, what do you know about the Uzumaki clan? Tsunade asked calmly. He probably didn't know much since Konoha appeared to have done everything in its power to bury the history of the clan and its relations to the village. Uzumaki. He thought of Naruto when thinking about this, but he shook his head. Not much, he said. The Uzumaki clan was a prestigious clan that had always been close to the Senju clan. My grandfather was married to Uzumaki and the Yondaime Hokage's wife was Uzumaki. You probably already know about the Kyuubi and have seen something in Naruto with your Byakugan, haven't you? Neji nodded. He told me, he said calmly. The blonde had told him, his burden, his curse. A curse that was worse than the one on his forehead. Tsunade smiled. The Shodai Hokage's wife was the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, and Naruto's mother became its second Jinchuriki. Naruto is its third, do you follow? All Jinchuriki have been from the Uzumaki clan. Tsunade nodded. Yes, she said. You don't hear much about them because during the Second Shinobi World War, their village was destroyed because some villages feared them. They were masters of Fuinjutsu and they had considerably strong chakra that was able to suppress bijus, who were used as power balancers. Since the Second Shinobi World War, we have always thought that they ended, but they did not. It has come out that they have revived and their clan is fully functioning, but we don't know anything because the village is closed. I am going to attempt to start a dialogue with them. I haven't started, but if they permit it, you and Kakashi will head to Uzushio to hold discussions with them. Now, Uzu has always been our ally. It has done much for this village than you know. Most of the seals that are used in this village were developed by the clan. That swirling symbol on your flank jacket is a symbol of the Uzumaki clan. Do you understand just how much of a partner they were to Konoha? Neji nodded. To think that Naruto was from a clan, and not just any clan but a prestigious clan that Konoha valued so much it decided that its shinobi should wear its symbol. That was a massive honor. No matter how good of friends clans were, you never wear the other symbol. Konoha had many great clans, but its shinobi didn't walk around wearing their symbols. Just how much of a bond did Konoha and Uzu have? Neji smiled. He wondered how the people who have resented Naruto will think about this. Is there something amusing? Tsunade asked. Naruto and I have a bit of a history, so I know how he was treated. I'm just thinking of how ironic it is, Neji said calmly. You said that Naruto's mother was Uzumaki and the Yondaime Hokage was married to Uzumaki. Is there any relation? I told you about the Uzumaki clan because you two will go on a mission to Uzu. You need to understand things and how you react and respond when you talk to them, but above all, I have chosen you two because of your dujutsu prowess. Tsunade said without answering Neji's question. I will call you when they say you can come. Neji nodded. He was careful with his words. Naruto is connected to Konoha's fourth Hokage, isn't he? The Yondaime was his father. That is a village secret, Neji, Tsunade said in a stern tone. Prepare yourself. I won't assign you any mission for the next month. We don't know when they will give their go-ahead, so you have to be ready at any time. Neji nodded and walked away without saying anything else. Kakashi, who had been silent throughout, then spoke. What happens when the Uzumaki consider us an enemy as well? Tsunade frowned at the thought. That is something I have been trying to ignore, she admitted. I don't know much of what happened in their destruction and why Konoha didn't do anything. The Sandaime would have answers, but he is dead. Well, that is troubling. Not so much, Tsunade said with a shake of her head. If Iwa and Kumo go after it, Uzu will not have any choice but to ally with us. It will be for their survival more than anything. I don't even think they would want to make enemies with all the great nations. They wouldn't survive that fight. And this time, there would be no one left, Kakashi said. What of Naruto? We will see when he comes back, Tsunade said with a shake of her head. It is most important now more than ever that he learns everything he can from Jiraiya. Even if Konoha cannot be involved, if he wants to fight for his clan, I will not stand in the way. That would be the least I can do for him. But if it is against the great nations, it will be sending him to his death. Kakashi, what has Konoha done for Naruto? If I stop him from going, and his clan is destroyed again, do you think he will ever forgive us? If we let him go and he fights as best as he can, we have the opportunity to save his life if it is in danger. Kakashi nodded. Tsunade didn't have any intention of allowing Naruto to die with the rest of his clan if the situation came to that point. But this also said that Konoha wasn't going to fight a battle that would see its very existence threatened. It feels like we are at those dreadful times once more, Kakashi said. War wasn't a mission. People died. The people you love die. Anything could happen. No one was guaranteed to return from the war. Not yet, but we have to be prepared for anything that happens. Tsunade said in a calm tone. I truly hope that it doesn't come to that. But in this world, the flames of war are simple to ignite. Land of the Toads. Naruto had never felt such peace before. He had never seen such beauty in nature before. This was truly a sacred land that wasn't corrupted by the blood of humans. The air felt fresh. It wasn't polluted by anything. Naruto felt like a man possessed. He just wanted to take a swim through the air and giggle like a fangirl, thinking lewd thoughts about the boys she loves. In this land, even the sun seemed to have a different vibe to it. The heavens seemed to look at the land much more brightly than any place he has ever touched. Naruto held out his right hand and then his left. He closed his eyes as he felt the air gather strongly around him, causing his hair to stand a bit wildly. Naruto then started twisting around. As he twisted, a tornado started to form around him, rising towards the heavens. The winds were so powerful that they started pulling everything towards them. Before they started pulling the boulders that laid around him, Naruto came to a halt and everything that was up began to fall. He watched the show with a smile. Someone is having fun, Jiraiya said. He was walking towards Naruto, Fukasaku with him. You just have to love nature, Uro-Sennin, Naruto said calmly. When the wind blows like this, it fills me with its mood and I just want to do things with it, I just want to be part of it. You are going to need that concentration, Jiraiya said in a calm tone. But that alone won't be enough. Then again, despite your large chakra reserves, you have fine chakra control. I'm almost jealous with how you are able to control it. You don't have the patience to learn, Naruto said with a shrug. But if you want to learn, we can take you to the sea and leave you there. You'll know, if you don't stand on the water using your chakra, you'll drown. Jiraiya thought about it for a moment. That is way too risky. You've always been taking risks, sensei, what is the difference now? There is a chance that I might actually die. Naruto merely smiled but didn't respond. He settled down and turned to the sage next to Jiraiya. Fukasaku-sama, he greeted politely. Naruto-chan, Fukasaku responded calmly. You have more chakra than Jiraiya had when he first came here and he still couldn't master Sage Mode. This might take time, he said. But you seem to be sensitive to nature, so it might not be. Naruto turned to Jiraiya. You failed to master Sage Jutsu. I didn't fail, I just didn't have enough time to learn, Jiraiya grumbled. Naruto smiled. Oh, my poor sensei. Your poor chakra control really does cost you a lot. You seem to struggle with a lot of things. Hell, even learning the Rasengan took you quite a while, and that was due to your chakra control, lack of it rather, Naruto said. But it still does make me respect you more of what you have achieved. Even with all that, you have still managed to become as powerful as you are. Finally, you are showing me some respect. Jiraiya exclaimed happily. Naruto shrugged. I am going to perfect it and then gloat about it at every turn I get. Jiraiya frowned. There is no need to be like that, sensei, it happens, Naruto said with a wide smile. Are we going to start now, Fukasaku-sama? The Toad Sage nodded his head and then asked Naruto to follow him. They stopped behind a small fountain of water. The sound of the water was calming. Naruto had to settle down to enjoy the comfort. You must understand the risks of this training, Naruto-chan. The Toad said in a firm tone. Naruto's eyes snapped towards Fukasaku. Risks? I didn't know there were risks, he said. There is a risk, and it is death. Fukasaku said sternly. Natural energy is powerful but also dangerous to those who cannot control it. You need to have perfect control of it to be able to absorb it and regulate it within your body. If you absorb it and fail to control it, you'll turn into a toad and then a statue like those. Naruto looked at the many toad statues lining up. Well, great power comes with great dangers. You don't look that concerned. I will be if you don't have method to stop me turning into a toad. Naruto said in a very serious tone. There is a way, I just have to supervise you, and this is why I will tell you that you mustn't try absorbing natural energy unless I am with you. If I am not there and you lose control or absorb too much, you will turn into a statue. I am very good at following rules, Naruto said with a nod. Besides that, turning into a toad means the death of me. How is Jiraiya able to use Senjutsu if he hasn't perfected it? Ma and I absorb fuse with him and we absorb the chakra for him. But because it is imperfect, it turns his appearance into like that of a toad. This is why he probably hasn't showed it to you. He will only use it in a situation of life and death, Fukasaku said. However, if you perfect it, you won't turn like a toad and you won't need our help. Naruto nodded. Is there a limit? It is chakra, there is no time limit, but how long you keep the mode depends on how much chakra you use. If you use it all, you will lose it. If you lose it in battle, gathering energy will be near possible because you'd have to be calm to absorb it. Naruto was silent before asking. Is there a limit of how much chakra I can gather? Can I absorb much more chakra than I have? The limit is how much chakra you can absorb. Aside from having the risks of turning into a toad, you can absorb as much as you want, as long as you can control it. I assume that I can also store it in my body if I develop a proper method. If I do that, I'm safe from running out of power while in battle. But we don't have that method, do we? Fukasaku shook his head. Since there is no end to natural energy, you don't have to worry much about it, Fukasaku said before he smiled. You have asked more questions than your father, he said. Minato. He was here. Fukasaku nodded. But because of his duties as Hokage, he didn't have much time to train and perfect it, and he died before he could. I hope you'll surpass both him and Jiraiya-chan. Naturally. Uzushio. Gurren couldn't help but admire the genius that was the man who sent this assassin to the whirlpools. You couldn't tell where the man came from just by looking at him. He looked like a normal civilian, but he was not. He was a trained killer who didn't have a problem in trying to blow himself up. It was like he had been ordered, the moment they were caught, activate the seal and die to avoid being questioned. Most of her captives usually swallow their tongues to avoid talking, but this one didn't try that, he had tried to blow himself up. But this was Uzushiogakure. They had stopped him before could do so, but talking seemed impossible. He simply could not answer certain questions because of the seal inside of him. The seal had been removed, Gurren tortured him, and he still refused to talk. The man didn't scream or cry out in pain. And she had learned her trade from Orochimaru. When she failed to get any information, she had gone straight to the leader's tower and found the man sitting with Haku. The two seemed to get along well. She had never questioned it. She was mostly doing the dirty work, which she realized Haku could not do because he was a kind-hearted person. She snorted at the thought. She didn't usually like people like that, but Haku was fine, they were comrades after all. The leader was a tall man with clear blue eyes, long crimson hair. He was usually smiling. His face was a bit flat, with large cheeks. But those eyes could switch from warmth to coldness in the blink of an eye. One second he was as cold as Haku's ice and the second he could be generating the same heat as lava. Gurren-san, Yoshino said in a light tone. You look frustrated. I am, Gurren admitted. The man always spoke in a smooth tone. Gurren noticed. He was truly a man who was polite and pleasant to have a conversation with, but he was still a frightening person. It was no wonder he held the position of leader. There were many personalities in this land and a weak person could not control everyone. People listened to him when he spoke. He commanded respect. He won't talk. He is prepared to die before he says anything. Yoshino nodded. But you are positive he is an assassin, yes? Gurren nodded. You can dispose of him, there is no need to apply any measures on him to make him talk. If the person is unwilling to talk and we apply strict measures, he will die. Yoshino stated calmly. The mark on his tongue, we can work with it and inquire where it comes from. If we discover that, then we know who sent him. Should I start digging? Yoshino shook his head. That will be for another unit to do. He paused for a moment, thinking. On second thought, keep him alive. We don't know what we might discover if we search. Maybe he might be willing to talk if he has the truth in front of him. Any suspicions on who could want to kill His Majesty? Haku asked. Spies from other villages have only been trying to find information, but they have never come for the kill. Gurren said with a shake of her head. I can't figure out who would try something like that. We can rule out the smaller villages, Suna and Kiri. I doubt Kumo would try assassination attempts. The Yondaime Raikage is a little proud, and his moves aggressively not so subtle like this. It will be either Konoha or Iwagakure. Yoshino responded quietly. I can understand Iwagakure, but why Konoha? Every village has its darkness, Gurren-san. You should know that the Hidden Leaf has done many things that are not so much what it preaches. There is a certain man named Danzo who moves even without the approval of the Hokage. He could have done this without the Godime Hokage knowing. If it's such the case, then we won't be taking any action until His Majesty is made aware of it. The village was run differently. The man who sits at the top of the village, the Emperor, wasn't involved in everything. This man, Yoshino, ran the village and commanded even the Jonins around the village. However, the Black Corps, which she ran, were only supposed to report to the Emperor. Because of his absence, she usually reported to this man. If you need help with pursuing this, you will let me know. Yoshino smiled, as always. He said. Gurren looked at that smile and shook her head. She left without saying another word. Once she was gone, Haku tuned to Yoshino. You really found a dependable person, he said of Gurren. Well, she was once Orochimaru's number 2 and she knew a lot of things he knew. We had to get that information from her. Yoshino said. I am glad we came across her on the hunt. She has freed our time to focus on other things. A month later. A month-long time and he hadn't come here at once. He hadn't even bothered trying to check in on how Naruto was doing in his training. For the first time since they started their journey, Jiraiya hadn't worried about Naruto. He hadn't worried about anything because Naruto was in a safe place. Nothing could possibly go wrong here. So he had moved around in peace and the quietness of long nights, observing things while keeping in contact with his network to gain information about the happenings of the elemental nations. Naruto was a person who worked fast, so he had thought there would be some progress with the training. When he was reserve summoned to the land of the toads, Fukasaku took him to a secluded place wearing a rather serious look on his face. He didn't joke around, but the look informed the Sannin that something was bothering the sage. Naruto didn't turn into a toad, did he? Jiraiya asked with concern. Well, the blonde had a tendency to train on his own. It wouldn't surprise him if he somehow went off to train on his own and ended up being petrified. That would be a disaster. Tsunade would kill him and Kushina would certainly mutilate him if he sees her in the world of the dead. Naruto could not go in such a way. Even if he was going, the blonde would have to die after him. He could not bury another student. Jiraiya could not survive that. He had mourned Minato. He would not mourn Naruto as well. Fukasaku slowly shook his head. Nothing like that happened. Do you think we'd let something like that happen to Minato's son? You wouldn't have allowed it to happen, but sometimes things you have no control over do happen, Jiraiya said in a serious tone. If nothing bad happened to Naruto, what is wrong? How did the training even go? Naruto had been an excellent student. He listened when someone was telling him something. He asked questions when he didn't understand something. When you told him to rest for the day, he would do it. He was truly the best student Fukasaku has ever had. It wasn't just that, but his ability to understand what he was being told and his fondness of nature made it suitable for him to learn senjutsu. He learned quickly and he grasped the methods he was taught quickly. In no time Naruto was able to gather natural energy and absorb it into his own body. He was able to attain a perfect sage mode. He had done what Jiraiya had failed to do and in a short period of time. Fukasaku should be happy. Naruto was even well-mannered. He appeared to be a child who behaved. You wouldn't think that he was learning from Jiraiya. Yet, Fukasaku was concerned. The training went perfectly, Fukasaku said. Naruto mastered Sage Mode and he has been training to get a better handle of it and absorbing more chakra than he has. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Isn't that too dangerous? If you can't control the flow of chakra but there must always be a balance of chakra, he achieves this by adding a bit of the Kyuubi's chakra, Fukasaku said. I didn't think it possible but he is doing it. He said with a shake of his head. The brat did it, Jiraiya said. I'm not going to hear the end of it, he mumbled. You just don't want to learn. If you had given it more time, you would have perfected yours already, Fukasaku said. It is too late for me, sensei, Jiraiya said in a resigned tone. If Naruto has done everything right, what is wrong? Fukasaku stared at Jiraiya for a long moment before asking. What do you know about Naruto-chan, Jiraiya? Huh? Jiraiya blinked in surprise at the question. What was that supposed to mean? He has been Naruto's sensei and the blonde was Minato's son. What was there more than he didn't know? Naruto-chan isn't like his father, is he? Jiraiya shook his head. Given everything, I didn't expect him to be like his father. There is a certain limit to how much hate you can take in. Naruto isn't like his father and he isn't like me. He is different from both his parents. I can't tell what he inherited from both of them. Minato had been a genius but Naruto wasn't a genius. Kushina was a strong-willed woman who was full of kindness and warmth, though, she could turn violent at any moment. Even so, she had been a good person. Naruto was like neither. He didn't have their vision, he didn't have their eyes. The hair was the same with his father and so was the color of his eyes, but Naruto's eyes were different. You couldn't tell what was in them. I discovered that, Fukasaku said. I can't tell if he is hot or cold, Jiraiya-chan. He has the concentration never seen in a human. I think it is impossible for a human to be as concentrated as he can be. This very ground can be shaking with explosions occurring left and right, Toad screaming in despair and he can still just stand still, eyes closed and have sweet dreams. Aren't you taking it a little too far? Jiraiya asked. But he knew just how much Naruto could focus on something. He had seen it after all. The blonde could stand still for hours. Sometimes regardless of how raging the battlefield was, you could miss the sound of his heartbeat, his breathing. Fukasaku shook his head. That is the truth, Jiraiya-chan, he said. It isn't necessarily a bad thing but Naruto-chan makes us nervous because we don't know what he is thinking. It is troubling given the revival of the Uzumaki clan. This revival is going to change the ninja world, Jiraiya-chan. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed. What do you mean by that? I can feel it. The elemental nations are heading into a different path. I don't know whether it will be good or bad but the Honorable Geezer says the Uzumaki will be the cause of this great change, Fukasaku said. Not this again. Already the revival of the Uzumaki clan has made other people take measures that worried him and could lead to war. But this just meant that there was more to the Uzumaki. They could be much more dangerous than he thought or anyone thought they were. The village itself looked normal. But they could still be hiding something. Well, that was a possibility. They were keeping themselves locked up in their land. They were planning something. And Naruto was going to be involved, simply because he was Uzumaki. Perhaps it was time they face the fact. If Naruto wanted to go, he would go. Perhaps he shouldn't have easily accepted the reasons the blonde gave him when he asked about the issue the other day. But it had made sense. Jiraiya had reasoned and found that Naruto made sense. It was like him, he always reasoned sensibly. We are not saying Naruto is bad, Jiraiya-chan, Fukasaku said. The Sannin nodded. You said he is neither hot nor cold, which means he could turn to any other side, and it is my responsibility to ensure that the path is one that we will still wish to be associated with. Yes, Fukasaku said. Other than that, he is good, respectful. Respectful my ass, Jiraiya exclaimed. That brat doesn't show me any ounce of respect. Fukasaku smiled. Naruto does respect you, Jiraiya-chan, he said. He is currently meditating by the waterfall. Jiraiya nodded and turned away from Fukasaku. He walked for a couple of moments before finally reaching the area. The air felt heavy. It wasn't natural. He figured it was Naruto's doing. The blonde had his eyes closed, meditating. The child of prophecy. He had been told he would train someone who would have the power to save or destroy the world. He had thought it would be Nagato, but Nagato died. He had thought it would be Minato, but he too died. And now there was Naruto. Was he going to end up getting another student? Jiraiya didn't think so. Naruto had to be the child of prophecy. But what could he do? He had done right by Naruto. He had shown him the world and what it was. At this point, he believed that Naruto understood the world better. But even now, he still couldn't get the blonde to answer him on what he wanted to do to change this world he felt was rotten and controlled by those who were greedy. He had to demand answers now. But he would have to be careful not to push Naruto away. Could the blonde bring destruction? Jiraiya couldn't say. He couldn't say Naruto could do it or could not. He didn't know the deeper thoughts of his own student. Wind blasted all around, hitting Jiraiya, but he remained grounded. It just succeeded in snapping him out of his thoughts. Naruto was staring at him with a sharp look. You know, for a moment I thought you were deciding on whether you should kill me or let me live, Naruto said. I doubt you'd let me get that close, Jiraiya said in a flat tone. I heard you succeeded, he said with a smile. Naruto nodded. Yes, natural energy is truly special. I love it. I'm proud of you, Jiraiya said with a grin. We can go to celebrate once we leave this place. A celebration with you, sensei. Why does that give me the chills? You worry too much. Jiraiya shrugged his shoulders carelessly. So what do you say? We are going to sow it in the Fire Nation, Tanzaku Gai, there are some good spots there. Naruto sighed. If you are paying, I can't complain. The blonde said. I haven't had a drop of alcohol since I came here and I really miss a steak. If we could, I'd just head to Konoha just to get a couple of ramen bowls and devour them. What are you complaining about? You look healthy. First day I had to eat with my eyes closed, you perverted sensei. Although, the food does taste good than it looks, Naruto said responded as he got up. I wonder how the world of humans will smell like when we finally get there, he said in thought. 2 weeks later, Tanzaku. Kurenai was walking with her team through the town of Tanzaku Gai. Kiba was bickering about something that happened during their successful mission. Then again, he was always very vocal about his thoughts. He wasn't the one to let things slide just like that without having a few words of his own to say. It did cause some problems for them when he could not keep his head down during tense times. He really needed to get a grip of his emotions at the crucial times or it would cost them dearly one day. Nothing has happened so far. They were a team, so when they moved, they always accounted for Kiba's behavior. That aside, they always had each other's back, so that helped during crucial times. Her team had grown nevertheless. Hinata and Kiba hadn't performed that well in their matches when they first took part of the Chunin exams, but they had done better in the next one. Perhaps it was because they had been better prepared. Kakashi's team and Guy's team had been the one with top students. I'm telling you, Shino, I had it under control. Kiba grumbled towards the glass-wearing shinobi. I didn't look that way to me. Why? Because you were getting beat. I was just trying to see what he could do, Kiba exclaimed a bit loudly. He was honestly annoyed about the fact that Shino had to come to his rescue. At this point, he was the weakest one in the team. It frustrated him because no matter what he did he couldn't surpass Shino. He wasn't worried about Hinata on that level, but Shino always beat him each time they sparred. You seem to do that a bit often, Shino noted. Hinata giggled lightly. Just admit it, Kiba-kun, she said. It always amused her when her teammate tried to play tough. Sometimes even when he was hurt, he would say he wasn't hurt just to put on a brave face. A man always has to be strong in front of a woman, huh? But did that apply for shinobi? Gender was irrelevant to the shinobi world when it does come to power. Kiba mumbled something under his breath. Kurenai sighed. She did wonder if Hinata knew that the boy always acted strong because he wanted to impress her. For Kiba's clan, being the alpha male was the most important thing in the method of winning the female. The weak were devoured. It was like a pack of wolves. The alpha male dominated. But Kiba didn't have the strength. He had the desire and attitude, but strength failed him when it mattered. Perhaps it had to do with a bit of his arrogance as well. Kiba, you remain the weakest link, Kurenai said. Not the words she would usually say, but he needed to hear it. They were heading towards a path of war. Konoha was preparing for the worst possible scenario, and if her students were going to survive, she needed for them to be strong. Kindness wasn't really going to make them live, was it? Kurenai-sensei. Kiba looked shocked hearing those words. The ruby-eyed genjutsu mistress smiled, a bit sadly. I'm sorry I had to say it, but you are not going to improve if nothing changes. I will have to speak to either Guy or Kakashi about teaching you taijutsu. You also need to learn to control your emotions. She said the last words with a stare. Anyone but Guy, sensei. Why? Kurenai asked. He was eccentric and perhaps way hyperactive, but he was still a better Jonin and very powerful. He might not use ninjutsu and his behavior might make many frown, but there was no Jonin who has witnessed him fight who doesn't respect him. Well, he is Guy-sensei, Kiba said. It was enough that he had to deal with Lee, he didn't need to deal with Might Guy as well. I would rather have Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi was a lazy Jonin, Kurenai wanted to say. She doubted he would even agree. Then again, this was one of those times. He could be serious. She heard that he was training these days. So, maybe things were different. You do know that neither you nor Shino have been able to defeat Lee, right? You don't need to remind me, sensei. Kurenai shook her head and looked up ahead of them. She saw shoulder-length blonde hair, it was wild as if it wasn't combed. There was the familiar swirl inside a circle on the back of the crimson long-sleeved shirt the person was wearing. The presence, it felt somewhat similar. For a moment, she would have thought she was staring at the back of the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto-kun. Kurenai glanced towards Hinata. The girl had said in a whisper, staring a bit wide-eyed to the person in front of them, who had his back on them, walking slowly with his hands on his pockets. Of course, she would be quick to recognize him. She seemed to know him better. The genjutsu mistress looked ahead once more. The Uzumaki symbol. He'd always worn the mark in each of the clothes she saw him wearing in the leaf, wasn't it? Well, there was no doubt he was from the clan. Then again, she hadn't thought much of the clan before they were called by the Hokage to discuss the clan's revival and what it meant to the shinobi world. He was from that clan, and he was in front of them, wearing the clan's symbol. Having heard Hinata with his keen sense of hearing, Kiba rushed forward. He stretched out his right hand to grab the blonde by his shoulders, but the Chunin found himself being lifted up into the air. He watched with surprise as his view turned upside down before he hit the ground on his back. What the hell, Naruto? Kiba shouted. Naruto didn't look at the Inuzuka. He glanced back through the corner of his eyes and frowned. He had been curious to know why Jiraiya chose this town, and now he knew. The Sannin had known he would meet Konoha shinobi. Not just any shinobi, but ones he had a history with. If the man really wanted for them to go to a megacure, they would have traveled somewhere a bit closer to the storm. The blonde glanced down at the Inuzuka, who was getting up. Kiba dusted himself up before glaring at Naruto. No need to look at me like that, Naruto said with a shrug. You should know that you can't sneak on a shinobi from behind. I'm your friend. Naruto shrugged. I wasn't expecting friends, he said before twisting around to face the rest of the gang. He smiled brilliantly as he greeted them. Shino, Hinata, he eyed the Genjutsu mistress for a moment before greeting her. And the delightful Kurenai-sensei. He wanted to say it was very convenient to see them, but he stopped short of saying those words. It wasn't convenient. Hardly anything was convenient in this world. Kurenai blinked at the greeting. Had he been always like this? She shook her head. She didn't have many interactions with him. She'd always watched from afar, but he hadn't been like this. Admittedly, he had grown and he had a presence about him. He had become quite the handsome young man. Naruto Uzumaki. She hadn't seen him in close to 3 years in Konoha. What was he doing here? Are you on your way back to Konoha? Naruto shook his head. I have been in this town for about 2 weeks now, he said. Just taking a breather for some training I was doing before heading out for something else. Naruto said kindly. Coming from a mission. Kurenai nodded. Are you alone? No, he said, but didn't say who he was with. It was nice seeing y'all. Wait, Kiba said before Naruto could walk away. When are you coming back? Naruto adopted a thoughtful look on his face before responding. Very soon, he said. Very soon, he repeated those words with a nod of his head. He waved his right hand with his back turned on the team before disappearing from the view. He completely disappeared, Kiba muttered. Wasn't expecting to see us, Kurenai said calmly. Come on, we shouldn't linger around here. We have to go back to Konoha. She began to move ahead. Later, Naruto would have to smack Jiraiya in the head for taking such measures just to get him to meet people from Konoha. It wasn't anything serious, and what did it achieve? Did he just want him to think, good lord, he misses home? What was it? Naruto couldn't understand. After thinking about it for a couple of moments, he decided he didn't need to understand it. Those people were going to tell other colleagues that they had seen him, and then people would be talking about him. Perhaps that was the main idea. Naruto really didn't care about it. He was currently sitting under a tree in a meditative pose, gathering natural energy. The process of trying to gather chakra while in battle would be a bit costing, so Naruto has been trying to test the limits of how much chakra he can absorb. Once he was done, he would find a way to create a seal that would allow him to store as much chakra as he could. 8 trigrams was able to contain the Kyuubi's chakra without any problem, and then he should be able to create a seal that can hold natural chakra. Minato's seal wasn't made to lock away the Kyuubi's power, but he had left a small path that allows the Bijuu's power to pass through a gate. There were no limits to how much chakra the seal could contain, but there were limits to how much he could wield. A seal he would have to create would need to have 2 openings, but they could not be opened at the same time. If the absorption gate opened, the release gate would have to close. This would mean he could properly regulate chakra and avoid overload. But how did he go about it? The seal itself could not do the absorption, he had to do it and then open the gate to store the chakra within it. This would require extensive chakra control. How much he was able to push into the seal would depend on the size of the gate. It was a challenge, but Naruto already had the ideas, he just had to begin with the formula. What would he name it? 2-gate sealing method? No, he would be using the same basics of the trigram seal. 2-trigram sealing method? Perhaps that would do. He would still need to develop a method of release for it. Given the danger that was with natural energy, he would need to be careful with the release, because he could not release it all at once. He would need to keep a constant flow of the chakra. If he released enough to activate Sage Mode, he would have to close the seal, but that would leave him with the task of releasing it once more if he ran out of chakra. He needed to release it once, but still keep a constant flow of it. That would mean had all the chakra available to him. Have you become my stalker, Itachi? Naruto asked without opening his eyes. The Uchiha was sitting on a tree branch just above him. No, you're a clone, where is the original? Not anywhere close, Itachi said. I can tell, Naruto said. I have been looking for you from the past couple of weeks, Itachi started. This might perhaps be the last conversation we will have. Jiraiya is busy with something else, so we can talk freely. Don't you mean, you can talk? Naruto asked calmly. I can only indulge you, Itachi. You are the one who has something to say to me. I can only respond to what you have to say. Itachi was silent for a moment. He didn't argue with Naruto on his point. Last time you spoke about what was right and wrong, but it has come to my understanding that Konoha's people will never beg you for forgiveness. They just want to forget the past and move on into the future. That is something I have thought about, Naruto said. You don't have hatred in your eyes, I have looked deep into you. But even when you don't have deep hatred for what was done to you, I still cannot tell what you will do about it. Itachi said in a calm tone. If Konoha's people pretend that nothing happened, will you still not do anything to forgive the past actions? Who knows? Naruto said with a thoughtful look on his face. I have much bigger issues to think about than that. As you know, the shinobi world is heading into a dark path and I must prepare myself for it. And who is the cause of this tension? Naruto looked amused for a moment before responding. You are going to blame the revival of the Uzumaki clan on the tension. Perhaps you might as well say if they had remained dead, things would be fine. But I say, if they hadn't been attacked in the first place, none of this would be happening. We cannot blame the branches for not producing fruits, Itachi. We must look at the soil and see if it was being nurtured enough to provide what is necessary for the branches to produce. The root of the problem isn't that the Uzumaki have returned, but that they were destroyed. Itachi could not disagree with that, he would not. It would be irrational to put any other argument that would not even hold. Naruto was right in what he was saying. But perhaps what worried him was what he would do. You can determine a problem and still take the wrong path on trying to solve it. I have already told you that what was done to the Uzumaki was wrong. Itachi, you told your brother to hate you, to resent you, and then he was strong. He should come to face you. Sasuke is trying to gain power to get revenge for his clan, the clan that you massacred, and you set him up for that path. My clan was destroyed, and if I set up for revenge, you wouldn't argue it was wrong, would you? Because it would be nothing more than hypocrisy. If Sasuke kills me, it is just me and no one gets caught up in it. But if you are going after revenge, a lot of people die, this world is taken into another war. You have to look at the bigger picture. The picture for me would be that it would revenge. The only difference is that it didn't just one human to destroy my clan but great nations to do it. Naruto said in a firm tone. I have seen what hatred does, what revenge does to a person, Itachi, I don't like it. No doubt he was talking about his own experiences. He has been living through hatred most of his life. If there was someone who could define what hatred is, it would be Naruto. He had seen it in Konoha and he was hosting a biju that was known as hatred. His former teammate had lost his way in his thirst for revenge, the greed for power. What do you think will happen if it comes clear that there were more parties involved in the Uchiha massacre? Do you think Sasuke will stop there? Of course he won't. He will do everything he can to destroy those who caused the downfall of his clan, Naruto stated in a firm tone. What is important to you, Itachi? Itachi knew. He was certain that if Sasuke learned of the truth, he would try to destroy Konoha. That was why he had asked Naruto if he would be willing to stop the Uchiha from doing so. Naruto was a capable shinobi. Konoha. I see, you value village over clan, Naruto said with a nod. Then what should I value, Itachi? The Uzumaki is more than just a clan. It is a village, my home. If I decided to leave Konoha, I'm certain that I would be able to live happily with my fellow clansmen, in our village. Would that be wrong? Itachi shook his head. No, he said. I just want to know what you really want to do, Naruto. As I speak with you, I begin to understand a bit more of how you reason things. But with how you reason, you should be with your people, your clan, but you are still with Konoha. Why? I can't understand that. What makes you say that? You are proud of being Uzumaki, and I find it highly unlikely that you have no connections with the clan. You have a connection with them. You would fight to protect them, even if it meant going against Konoha. But why are you not going there? Isn't it because I am a Konoha shinobi? For now, at least. I have no evil intentions, Itachi. If you are concerned about destruction, go to your brother before he delves further into darkness. If he does, there will be no one to save him. Naruto said, I am also not someone you should worry about because the actions of Iwa and Kumo should be what concerns you. Am I wrong? I will deal with Sasuke, soon, Itachi said. You have a good understanding of things, Naruto-kun. I am certain that you think deeply about your future. You are not stupid or arrogant. I wish we had grown around the same time. Perhaps we might have been friends. Itachi burst into a murder of crows after saying those words. Naruto sat still for a moment before shrugging his shoulders. He went back to focusing on his seal. Later that night, there was a small symbol of the Uzumaki, a kanji for chakra at the heart of it. At the top and base, there were two similar markings. The marking at the top was lying upside down and the one at the base lying flat. The drawings on the top read, seal, and at the base, release. This was the work Jiraiya found when he returned late at night. It was drawn on a large sealing scroll, left open on a small table. Naruto always had a table in each room they rented, wasn't it? He had questioned Naruto's prowess in Fuinjutsu, but now he was seeing it. He had learned the art, so he could tell it was as a complex work that could regulate chakra. He stared at the seal for a couple of moments, trying to piece it together. It had 3 parts and they were all separated. Perhaps it wasn't a finished product but a work in progress. Are you sleeping? Jiraiya asked in a quiet tone. Naruto was sitting silently by the window with his eyes closed. I was before you woke me up with your presence. Naruto responded without looking at the Sannin. What is this? Something I was working on today. I'm trying to create a second storage of chakra to be used in case I deplete my chakra reserves. Naruto responded calmly. Do you need to worry about that? Naruto nodded. Some of my jutsus require massive amounts of chakra. My Rasenshuriken has limited use because it demands too much chakra. In a situation where I have to fight a long battle, having more chakra will be important. Stamina I have. I can fight for longer periods, but stamina is nothing when you are out of chakra and your first fighting style is the use of ninjutsu. Things were going to get heated soon. Naruto could already see himself fighting large number of shinobi, and if things happen like that, he would need almost unlimited supply of chakra. Well, that is if a war occurs. With Kumo and Iwagakure lurking, anything could happen. Naruto wasn't going to take any chances because he had to be prepared for anything. Only those with strong minds and bodies could survive a war. Naruto wanted to survive. He wanted to live a long life worthy of someone with the Uzumaki blood. I know you said you studied almost everything about Fuinjutsu. I didn't think you were this good, Jiraiya said. And all this time you never said a damn thing. Naruto shrugged his shoulders in a careless manner. You should know me already now, Jiraiya-sensei. It was never convenient for me to use my Fuinjutsu skills. And I never pretended to be ignorant of it. This was just a subject we never really did discuss in details. Jiraiya sighed before settling down. He cast his glance towards the seal once more. It had been left there on purpose, just for him to see. He had said they would have to discuss the practical use of Fuinjutsu. What did he expect anyway? Naruto was a proud Uzumaki. What did the Uzumaki excel in? There was no doubt he was Uzumaki now. But what more could the blonde do with Fuinjutsu? He had obviously developed that from scratch. And that was no easy feat. Drawing a new formula was no easy thing to do. He had learned most of the seals he knew. Naruto has probably learned more about many seals than he has since he has studied seals for many hours. I am going to be honest with you, Naruto, Jiraiya said in a serious tone. You shouldn't phrase your statement like that, sensei, Naruto said. You make it sound as if you have been lying all this time, and which isn't true. He paused and looked over at the Toad Sage. I figured this was going to come any time soon, he said. You figured. Naruto nodded before looking outside. The streets were dark. The sun was nowhere to be seen. The moon had its eyes closed tonight. When you came for me, the air around you felt tense when you were staring at me. I couldn't read anything from your mask. You are a professional at that. Jiraiya was silent for a couple of moments. Naruto hadn't even twitched to show him he thought there was something wrong. The blonde was truly another professional when it comes to schooling his reactions. It just spoke volumes to how calm and controlled he was. The toads told me something. I have told you about the prophecy the toads told me, right? Naruto nodded. Perhaps it was something that made him cautious about being near the toads. You did say something like that. You did say you once thought it could be my father, but that didn't end well. You also had another student. Nagato, Jiraiya said. He was Uzumaki and had the Rinnegan, the eyes once wielded by the legendary Sage of Six Paths. The Sage of Six Paths, that wasn't something Naruto thought much about. But the man did once exist in this world. Another story does state that he was truly a master of the sealing art. Perhaps the Uzumaki got this from him. Both the Senju and Uchiha were descendants of the sage, and they inherited his powers, or so the powers of his sons. If you didn't know the history of both clans in their founding, you wouldn't know something like that. Uzumaki, Jiraiya smiled. The clan wasn't blessed with the Dujutsu prowess of the Uchiha, and yet they were the danger. You know, there was once a time when there was a rule: if you meet a Sharingan wielder and you are alone, you don't face, you run away. The Sharingan is also powerful enough to cast Genjutsu to control a Biju, yet, it wasn't the clan that was determined the most threat, but Uzumaki. There are just many things that we don't know about why they were destroyed, and we might never know. Perhaps, Naruto said, some secrets have died with relics of the past. You might find that 50,000 people were involved, but only one of them knows the real truth of what actually happened. There is that possibility, Jiraiya said. I think that you might be the child of prophecy, Naruto. I think that you can bring change in this world, but whether it will be destruction or peace is another matter that nobody can determine. I really hope that if the prophecy is indeed true and I am correct, you will become a savior of the shinobi world, Naruto. Destruction? Oh yes, there were powers in this world that could cause so much destruction and death. It could just be pure chaos. One person could destroy even a village like Konoha with just one jutsu. Naruto had a clear idea on what he needed to do, but whether there was going to be peace or destruction would depend on how the elemental nations responded to him. He wasn't thinking about that for now. He was most concerned about what was in front of him. You have huge dreams, sensei, Naruto said. Naruto wasn't going to comment on his proclamation, Jiraiya realized. Before, he would have allowed the blonde to get away with it, but not this time. He wasn't going to do something like that. I want your response about what I just said, Naruto. Naruto looked at the Sannin for a couple of moments before looking away. That is something to think about, but it is really a frightening knowledge. I am not a kind-hearted person who is as idealistic as you are, sensei. Nevertheless, I heard what you have said. Perhaps it excites me more than it does frighten me. Either way, we will not know anything unless we truly live that reality. I have no thirst for destruction, and I'm still evaluating things. I will be watching you from now on, Naruto, more so than I did, Jiraiya said in a hardened tone. You are my student. Yes, you do not share my dreams, but it doesn't change anything. I don't know how you will involve yourself with the Uzumaki, but you'll probably play a huge role. As your sensei, it is my job to ensure that your role is good, Your role doesn't bring chaos and destruction in this world. You have the power of the Kyuubi, that isn't something even I can go against. Then I look forward to seeing what you are going to do, Sensei, Naruto said with a small smile. What are we going to do? I said we would visit a Megakure, I never mentioned why. Jiraiya said. A Megakure was led by Hanzo, but we haven't heard anything about him. Given how strong he was, I doubt he is dead. The reign has nevertheless been under lockdown for a while. Its reputation with spies is as notorious as Uzushio. We are going to investigate to see is happening. I have also learned that the Akatsuki might be located there. I have also learned that there is a civil war in the village. It might be the Akatsuki against Hanzo. What is the problem with the Akatsuki, Jiraiya? They are just a mercenary group, isn't it? Jiraiya nodded his head. That is true, but Orochimaru was once a member, and Itachi is currently a member. Who is able to control these powerful shinobi? The leader of the group must be a powerful shinobi. We don't know anything, hence we are going to investigate. I know the civil war is real, but if the Akatsuki is involved, it means a mercenary group is trying to take over a village. This will be my first spy thriller, Naruto said with a smile. When do we leave? You'll have to be careful, Naruto. A Megakure is dangerous. If we go there, we could be walking straight into a civil war, Jiraiya said. He hadn't been planning on taking Naruto with him, but with the blonde done with his training, he had to take him. That aside, Naruto knew how to hide his presence, he knew how to be subtle. And if something happened, the two of them could always handle it. Naruto had perfected Senjutsu. There shouldn't be problems the two of them couldn't handle. They would make a combo, wouldn't they? If they entered a battlefield in Sage mode, they would decimate their opponents. When have I been careless, Sensei? Those words ran inside Jiraiya's head like a loud bell that left him dazed for a moment. Perhaps he had been right to think that Naruto would do well. The blonde was never careless. He certainly moved with the slickness of a snake. I sometimes forget those qualities you don't always show. You should pay attention to your student, Jiraiya, Naruto said sternly. What was it with Kurenai's team? Jiraiya grinned. I thought it would be a nice touch to remind you of home. We had been avoiding Konoha Shinobi and never talked more about it. I just thought it would be nice if some of your friends saw you. You know old feelings. Naruto shook his head. Don't be diabolical, Sensei. You are already a shameless pervert. You need not add such a trait in your personality. Jiraiya shrugged indifferently. We leave tomorrow morning, the Sannin said. Be ready when I come. Sleeping elsewhere. Jiraiya merely smiled before he started to walk away. He stopped by the seal on the small table and stared at it for a long minute. After this mission, you'll need to show me more seals you know, he said in a serious tone. Konoha. When Danzo burst into her office, waking her from her nap, Tsunade was close to jumping on the man to crush him for disturbing her, but she quickly stopped from doing so. There had to be a reason he was in her office. She hadn't been seeing more of him in the past month because she had been busy tidying up things in the village and he had been busy running his show in the underground. The War Hawk had a rather serious look about him, it was a stern look. Perhaps it was something that she had used to doing, but this one looked different. What is it, Danzo? Danzo stared at the woman for a moment. It wasn't easy working for her. But he was managing. He hasn't been doing anything that would warrant her attention, but he was just being careful. There was no need to do anything now. Patience has always been his friend and he would be patient. He would strike when the time was right. He wouldn't be afraid if she failed with Uzushio and Iwagakure. He could pick up the pieces. But the fact that she wasn't glaring at him meant that Uzushio-gakure didn't inform her that it caught his people who had a mission to assassinate their leader. It had been a risk worth taking. If he had managed to kill the leader of Uzu and leak this to Iwagakure and Kumo, he could have plotted things wonderfully and Konoha would watch the chaos occur before pouncing. Yet, the fact that Uzushio didn't say anything to Tsunade was a little troubling. He was dealing with devious people. Well, it was better that the Godime didn't know. He was safe as long as she didn't know. But Uzu wouldn't try to use this information to blackmail him, would it? If something happened, this woman would no doubt send her shinobi after him and it would not be pretty. At this point, he was even considering using Shisui's eye on her. I have just received a report that Sasuke has left Orochimaru. Danzo said. What? He left Orochimaru and was seen into the Fire Nation. We don't know where he ended up going, but he is possibly looking for Itachi. Danzo said. It would be troublesome if Itachi comes across the younger Uchiha and says something. No, the Uchiha knew his duty to the village. He wouldn't dare say anything to Sasuke. With how emotional the young Uchiha was, he would no doubt try to attack Konoha. With how the elder Uchiha loved the leaf, it was unlikely he would do anything that would lead to such an action. Tsunade stared at the war hawk for a moment. Sakura had been right. This was happening, but where was he going? Did he think that he was now powerful enough to defeat his elder brother? What about Orochimaru? I don't know if he is alive or dead, though, it would be best if he was dead. Orochimaru was a liability to the leaf and to him. His continued existence was nothing more than a ticking time bomb. I want something more than that, Danzo, Tsunade said in a firm. Go confirm it. If he is indeed dead, I want his head before me. If you can't bring his head, get me something I can work on. If he is still alive, confirm it. There is still Kabuto to think about. Where is he? I will have to look for that. Then get to it. Tsunade ordered in a hardened tone. I want results soon. Danzo didn't respond to being ordered like that. He could permit it, for now. He had patience to deal with this. For now, but the day would come. She would either be dead or kneel before him and beg for him to spare her life. We have not discussed Sasuke. What of him? If possible, it would be best that he not even meet with Itachi. We have a better chance of catching him since he isn't under the protection of Orochimaru. Danzo said those words in a stern tone. Do you have his exact location or general location? Tsunade asked. No. Then go find it, and when you do, come back to me and we will discuss what needs to be done. I will be more than happy to send my top shinobi after both him and Itachi. Tsunade said. He would not allow that to happen. Danzo would make sure that Itachi was dead before he arrived in the hidden leaf. There was a chance of talking if he arrived back in the leaf. They had not even been actively pursuing him because they had let him leave the village after serving it. A truly noble act as one should expect from a true shinobi of the hidden leaf. You still haven't given me a clear answer on whether you will give Sasuke to me or not, Danzo said. Since we have a clear chance of getting him back, we need to settle the issue.